Hey there, my name's Kevin Camm. I'm with Virginia Cooperative Extension. I'm the extension agent for the city of Lynchburg in both 4-H and agricultural and natural resources.
My name is Hieu Tran. I'm the farm manager here at Lynchburg Grows, a 6.8 acre urban farm right behind the Hillcat Stadium. And we're here to talk to you about compost.
A lot of people may think that they can do compost. A lot of people may have some questions about compost. Well, what Huey and I are going to do today, we're going to give you some information about composting, the ins and outs, if you will, and then you're going to decide whether it's good for you. Composting is the biological decomposition of organic material into a humus-like substance called compost. The process occurs naturally, but it can be accelerated and improved by controlling environmental factors. People may wonder, why should I even bother composting if everything organic decomposes eventually anyway? Well, if raw wastes are directly put into the soil, the decomposition process will rob the soil of nitrogen, which is very important for plants. Finished compost from a pile is typically a more uniform product, sort of like stirring the cake batter up into a bowl with a better balance of nutrients. And it can be used throughout the growing season in many different types of applications. With a pile, composters have more control over adding and mixing the amount of carbon, leaves, and nitrogen, grass clippings, rich materials used to make the end product. A properly controlled composting environment can ensure production of high temperatures needed for killing weed seeds, diseased plant tissue, and pathogenic organisms. If you see this, this is what you probably see when you're digging in your yard. Good old Virginia clay soil. It's horrible. We all have to deal with it, and how we deal with it is by putting fertilizers, nitrogen down in our yards to make sure that the plants that we grow healthy and strong and sturdy and long lasting. But you bring compost in and you're starting to get a darker color. And when I think of compost, when I say darker, I'm talking about dark. It looks sort of like a crushed up chocolate cookie. And that's good soil. That tells me that there's organic matter in there, that it's full of nutrients. It's offset on pH, so in our clay soil, it's going to neutralize a lot of that, and by putting it in and ingraining it into our soils, eventually our soils will get better and better, darker in color, produce more vibrant plants, turf grass, vegetables if you will, without spending all of the money on fertilizers and nitrogens. Where do your leaves go in Lynchburg? Lynchburg is pretty cool when they will collect your leaves at no cost, when you rake them down to the edge of your lawn if you're not interested in composting. One place that it went to a few years ago was here, Lynchburg Grows. Several truckloads would come in. Instead of those leaves going to the landfill and then doing nothing after breaking down, Lynchburg Grows would be using those leaves as leaf mulch and then broken down into compost, such as this. But this is pre-screened. This is stuff that has come from homeowners' yards. So that's the importance of why we have to screen and make sure that what we're putting in our compost is the good stuff. Things like this do not break down. Organic matter, anything that comes from plant materials usually can get broken down, such as bones, plastic, bottles, and other trash, aluminum, that won't break down. So don't put that in your compost pile. It's not just the trash. If it comes out of the ground, more than likely it can be composted. Eggshells, coffee grounds, that's the good stuff. But we just want to make sure that no trash gets in there because it won't be broken down and then you don't want it in your ground.
This is an example of a compost bin that's been here about 7-8 years. We've been feeding it scraps from the farm, but you could also use scraps from your kitchens. Banana peels, onion peels, just things you'd either chop up and just throw away, but any organic matter will do. Some things we don't want to do is potatoes, things that might regrow themselves inside the compost bin. Over time, a lot of the stuff has broken down into richer, more nutrient-dense soil. And deep down in here, we're actually practicing vermiculture, which is the actual farming of worms to help break down the soil, but also add nutrients as they breed and waste inside the bin.
So in this example right here, Huey's got some old plant matter that can be broken down. What he's doing is just breaking it up, and eventually it's going to get ingrained with the compost pile. Now when you think about it, composting, all it is just covering it up. It's sort of like making a lasagna. You put your noodle layer on, you put your sauce, then you put your cheese, and then you repeat that over and over again. Also, when you're moving things around, you're putting oxygen in there. There's tons of microorganisms that need that oxygen that will help with the breakdown of all of this matter. When you also move this around, it leaves pores, it aerates the soil so water can penetrate it. That's another thing that compost piles need, is good water source. You want it to be a pile that is not soaking wet, but just enough wet so you can grab a whole pile of it in your hands and squeeze out maybe a drop of water or two, and that's basically it. And as Huey finishes up with the layering, that's all it is about it. You put your top layer, you're just going to cover it with some compost or some topsoil, and then let the sun, let the water, let the microorganisms and the bacteria in there do the work.
So at the end of last summer, after all the tomatoes have been picked and we picked off all the green tomatoes, we had a ton of vines and leaves and foliage that we didn't have use for within the greenhouses. Well, we brought those out here and layered that with the leaf mulch from the city collection. It would be one layer of brown stuff and then one layer of green stuff, and we'll build up those layers. Less than 1 year later, I have all of this broken down compost that is perfect for planting. I'm right now filling my raised beds with this, and for the most part, it's all broken down into rich soil for future planting. At $10 a truckload, Lynchburg Grows has piles and piles and piles of broken down leaf mulch that you can start your compost layers with. We've built mounds here a lot easier than the turning compost bins, where you can just lay down the leaf mulch, put in your kitchen scraps, and then do continual layers of leaf mulch and kitchen scraps until about after enough turns, it's broken down into planting material for your home garden.
This is one example of how compost can be screened. This is a larger screen. Of course, this is one that Lynchburg Grows uses to screen out their compost. So how this works, a homeowner has a truck, or even a landscaper pulls their truck in, backs in right here, and then a front loader will dump the compost on top of here. It gets sifted out, and then Joe homeowner can just take his truck and go on to his house and put it on his plants. Well, thanks for joining us today. Hopefully you got some information if you're ever interested in doing composting for yourself or just curious about composting. If you have any questions about how to build your own bin, what to do, what's the ratios, what should you do with your grass clippings or leaves, give me a call at the extension office at 434-455-3740. Some of our master gardeners could come out and do a home visit with you. I could come out and we can help you out in that.
Yeah. Or come down to Lynchburg Grows and check us out. We're at 1339 Inglewood Street in Lynchburg, Virginia.